So, what is the February 28th consumer economic blackout in the U.S.? And this is what you need to know as it relates to this. You may have received a message, as I have, talking about, hey, no spending on this date for these particular reasons. Who's behind it? How can this benefit you? And more importantly, what the real work should be based on my humble opinion. So, the People's Union USA is organizing a February 28th economic blackout, urging Americans to boycott major retailers for 24 hours in protest of rising prices and corporate greed. A grassroots movement called the People's Union basically is calling for a nationwide consumer boycott on February 28th, urging Americans to halt all purchases for 24 hours in protest of rising prices and corporate practices, which, I have seen and witnessed myself, things rising and they just push a button and get an instant return on their investment. So I understand the frustration. The February 28th economic blackout has been gaining traction on social media with calls to avoid spending at major retailers and fast food chains. So the call for action. The People's Union USA, founded by John Schwartz, or the one called Jay on social media from Queens, New York, is spearheading the movement. The organization describes itself as a nonpartisan group focused on fairness, economic justice, and real systemic change. For our entire lives, they have told us that we have no choice, that we have to accept these insane prices, the corporate greed, the billionaire tax break, all while we struggle just to get by, Schwartz said in a video posted on his Instagram account. February 28th, the 24-hour economic blackout. No Amazon, no Walmart, no fast food, no gas, not a single unnecessary dollar spent for one day. We're going to finally turn the table. So that's the mission, that's the move, that's the call to action. So targeting major retailers. So who's being targeted specifically? Some online supporters have suggested a targeted boycott of corporations such as Ford, McDonald's, Meta, Target, and Walmart. These companies have reportedly ended their DEI programs to comply with an executive order signed by Trump in January. And depending on your perspective, the DEI being removed can be a benefit, even for those who believe that it's not a benefit too. Because the DEI, if they have to put something in writing that makes a person have to work with you just because of your skin complexion, then they don't really want to work with you anyway. That's my humble opinion on that. So removing it depends on your perspective of whether or not it can be beneficial or detrimental. Now, making sure you apply pressure to those who don't like you can be a big deal, but I feel like you need to make that a lifestyle, not just a 24-hour thing. A boycott 24 hours, that's cool. They might write it down and be like, they'll forget. They're going to come back and, it'll be short-lived. But if you make that a lifestyle, your own habits, based on what you know about certain entities, then you won't ever do certain things depending on your perspective, or you'll find a way to make sure you're not greasing the palms of those who you don't want to support. That's just that. And I'll give you a detailed example a little bit later. So let's continue reading. So basically, it's talking about the executive orders that have been signed by Trump in January. However, the main messaging from the People's Union encourages a broader approach, refraining from spending at all major retailers for the day. According to an email circulating about the event, the boycott extends from midnight to 11:59 p.m. on Friday, February 28th, including both online and in-store purchases. A protest against economic struggles. So the protest comes as many Americans face rising costs on essentials like groceries, gas, and housing. Supporters argue that corporations continue to increase prices while benefiting from tax breaks and record profits, which they do. They can push a button and boom, they get a high raise of their return on investment. So this is really what's causing the issue amongst the people who are wanting to do this protest. So you let me know, what are you doing? What is your mindset? Or how do you feel about the protest? Are you participating? And this is what I mean when I say it's more important to develop the mindset or the habit of understanding, this is how they operate. Let me position myself to not be taken advantage of. So if it's an entity that you frequent and you know this is how they operate, then you got to figure out, okay, how can I avoid having to need them? Some companies have gotten so big to the point where you feel as though, dang, how can I survive without them? But if you take a step back and you ask yourself those questions, what can I do to position myself to not have to depend or rely on this company? Then I'm sure you'll come up with some solutions, some alternatives, some things that you can do in order to position yourself to say, you know what? I no longer have to spend this extra $1,000 a month I was spending with this company, or $1,000 a year I was spending with this company, because I figured out a solution to avoid doing that and only circulating my money in ways and areas and entities that I want to support, and still doing it in a way that is not overextending the amount I pay. So still not overpaying for certain things, but finding a different way to do it, whatever that may be. But you have to make this a mentality. If it's a company you don't fool with, you don't like, just because they change their rules or start incorporating certain things, you still shouldn't trust it. Just because they start targeting you and acting as though they're a part of the clique or they rock with you, doesn't mean that they actually rock with you. So a lot of times a company may do something that may be racial or, discriminatory, or just something that offends you. And then you're like, all right, I ain't fooling with them no more. Then all they got to do is a partnership with a big name that looks like you or somebody you trust and respect. And you're like, oh, they back working with the people now. I'm back fooling with them. No, they just did that to get the dollar back that they lost because of the thing that they did that was offensive. They're still the same entity. They're still the same company. You still got to develop the mindset of what is it that they are on, that they do, that could be not geared towards liking you as a human being. So, that being said, real quick story. It was something that I heard about years ago. Tommy Hilfiger. They talking about how he was racing. I was a kid at this time. And at this time, Tommy Hilfiger was booming. And at that time, people were selling and, pretty much creating knockoff Tommy Hilfigers. But Tommy Hilfiger was booming to the level of people was rocking with it, especially our people. I heard that he was racist back even, I was young enough to where I didn't even have any ability or money to be able to buy Tommy Hilfiger. But I remember hearing that. From that day, I don't buy Tommy. And I've had some Tommy at some point, like gifted to me. It was like some Tommy overalls, maybe a couple of shirts. But since then, if I know that that's the thought process, and it could have been totally false. I heard it. I understood it. I do not buy Tommy Hilfiger to this day. I see it on the rack. It could be on the sale at discount. It could be $1 when it's typically $30. I don't buy it, period. So you have to adopt that mentality so that way you don't get taken advantage of as a consumer. And that's what we're all about. Showing you how to keep more of your money, but also developing a mindset that becomes a habit. And when that habit becomes you, now you're not worried about some blackout date. You make this a part of your lifestyle. And if everybody adopts that mentality, it ain't no 24 hours in a day that will dictate what you're able to do. Not that it couldn't be a strong push, so I'm not knocking it. But if you make that a part of your lifestyle, they ain't gonna have no choice but to respect you. Period. Point blank. That's all I got for this video. Rant over. Mr. Smith signing out. Salute.